Begin the Gemara today and Daf Kuf Yud Beis Amud Aleph. So in the Mishnah here it said regarding a Yavam and a Yevama that lived with one another. They were living in the same house, and after 30 days she comes and she says, "We never lived with each other. We never had marital relations." So what happens if there's no marital relations? So the mitzvah of Yibum wasn't done. If the mitzvah of Yibum wasn't done, so then she could still have chalitza done for her. So the Mishnah says, if it's before 30 days that they were living with one another, so we trust her. We trust her that they never had any relations, and therefore he has to do chalitza. If it's after 30 days, and she says, we never lived with one another, so then we don't really trust her, and he's not going to have to give her a chalitza. We assume that he lived with her and the yibum was done already. If he wants, because she's saying we never lived with one another, so then if he's ready, we ask him if he wants and he's ready, he can give her a chalitza. But okay, that's what it said in the Mishnah. So the Gemara now asks on this, on the topic of Yud Beis Amud Aleph. So it said, that within 30 days, she says that we never lived with one another, so we force him to give her a chalitza. We trust her about that, and then we force him to give her a chalitza. Fragt the Gemara, why do we force him to do chalitza? Nichpinu liyavim. If we trust her that they never lived with one another, so they did not do the mitzvah of Yibum yet, so instead of forcing him to do the mitzvah of Chalitza, let's force him to be miyavim, to actually live with her and do the mitzvah of Yibum. Amarav, so Rav explains what our Mishnah is speaking about. What it's speaking about over here is that she has a get. She's coming after 30 days, or actually this is speaking about within 30 days that he was living with her. And she has a get. She says, my Yavam gave me a get. So now, if he lived with her, so he was already like a husband and wife, so that get is perfect. She can go out and get married to whoever she wants. But if he never lived with her, the get will not now be mat to her. She still needs chalitza. Right? But once she got a get, what is the effect of this get? This get will not allow any yibum. The halacha by a yavam and a yavam is, once the yavam gives the yavam a get, even though the get doesn't have any effect, but midrabana, once you give a get, you can't do yibum anymore. So over here she has a get, so therefore yibum is not an option, so we force him to give her chalitza. But the Gemara asks her from a braise where it seems like that there's no get yet. Meisvei, the braise which speaks about the halach of the Mishnah and elaborates more, says as follows. Yevama comes along and says, it's within 30 days. They were living with one another in the same house within 30 days, and she says, Loi nevalti, I never had any relations with him. Now, whether the husband, the man, he says, Balti, yes, I did have relations with her. Ben Shuhaimer loy Balti, he also agrees and says, no, I never had relations with her. We force him to do chalitza. We trust her that he did not have any relations, and we force him to give her chalitza. The Gemara before explained, within 30 days, we trust her that he held back from having relations with her. But after 30 days, even if she comes and claims we had never had relations with one another, we don't trust her. He couldn't hold himself back for 30 days or more than 30 days. So after 30 days, so if she says that they never had relations, so we ask of him that he should give her chalitza because she's saying they never had relations, so she's asking herself. She's saying, I need chalitza. So we ask him to give her chalitza. Huh? Oh, I skipped something? I don't think so. Okay. What? Yeah, so that's the first case. If it's within 30 days. Within 30 days, so we force him to give her chalitza. But if it's after 30 days, so then now if she comes along and says that, and again this is after 30 days, and she says that she had relations with him, and he says no, never had relations with her, so we don't believe him. It's after 30 days. He gives her a get, and that's it. And she's free to go. He says that he did have relations with her, so a get is enough. And she says, I never had relations with him, and I still need a chalitza. If even afterwards he came around and he admitted to her that they never had relations, so if they never had relations, so then they should need chalitza. So Mishnah said, the Braisa says, tzricha get v'chalitza. You're going to have a get and chalitza. It's already after 30 days, so therefore you're going to have a get as well, even though both of them at this point are admitting that they never had relations with one another. So chalitza should be enough. But because it's after 30 days, they're going to need a get and chalitza. Now, what's the Gemara's question from this Braisa? The fact that the Braisa finishes off saying that they need a get and chalitza shows that we're speaking about over here a case where there was no get yet. And it's telling you that now you should go ahead and give her a get. But the question is though, so then why are we talking about that he has to give her chalitza, or we force him to give her chalitza or not? Let him just be meyavim her. The question that the Gemara asked before. So the Gemara answers, Amar Abami, the way to read this Braisa is, when it said that she needs a get and chalitza, tzricha chalitza im gita. It means she already got the get, like Rav said it before. What the Braisa is saying is, along with the get, she's going to need chalitza as well. But she already has the get. Okay, so Rashi points out, it's a little bit difficult to understand here, the words of the Braisa. The Braisa says, Afa pisha chazava oma loy ba'alti, tzricha get v'chalitza. That she needs a get and chalitza. The simple pshat of the Braisa was, the whole chiddush is that she still needs a get. Even though the man and the woman are both saying that they had no relations whatsoever. So if so, they should only need chalitza. It looked like the main chiddush of the Braisa was to say that she still needs a get, because it's after 30 days already, and we assume that they did have relations with one another. Now the Gemara is saying she has the get already. That's not the main point there. The main point is that she needs chalitza. So what's the chiddush of the Braisa, B'chlal, in this last case? If they both are saying that we did not have relations with one another, so what's the chiddush of the Braisa that she needs chalitza? So Rashi says what the Braisa it means to say be'ikr, according to this answer of the Gemara, is that she'll need chalitza, but we don't force him. We don't force him to give her chalitza. Since it's after 30 days, and we assume that they had relations with one another, that's what the Braisa is saying. She's going to get chalitza, but we can't force him. Sorry. Okay, that's one shot in this Braisa. Rav Ashi says a different shot here. Hasam get lizikosai. When Rav said that the case over here is that she already got a get, what he was saying was she got a get for the zika, meaning right after her husband died, and now there's a connection to her yavam, and the yavam went and gave her a get to try to sever that zika. Now, when I tell you that get does not take effect at all. That get does only take effect with the Rabbanan. So on that, Rav said that because he already gave that get, so that's the reason why you can't do yibum anymore. Once you give a get for the zika to try to sever that zika, you can't do yibum, only chalitza. So that explains why the Mishnah and this Braisa say that you could only do chalitza at this point. But hacha over here, when the Braisa says that you still have to give her a get libi yosai. Over here it's a different thing. Over here you need a get min atayra. If he actually had relations with her, so now it's a husband and wife. So that he's going to need a regular get for the biyah. So that's a different get. So that's what it means over here when it says that she still needs a get. Sagt the Gemara, Hanu Shneim Maidim. There were two individuals, a Yavam and a Yevama, and they're both admitting that they never lived with one another. And so Rashi says what happened was, in the beginning they were arguing. In the beginning she said, I never had relations with you, and he said, we did. And then he came around and he admitted and he said, no, I never had relations with you. So these two individuals came in front of Rava. So what's the halacha now? What do they need? They need a get, do they need chalitza? So Amalu Rava says, chaloitzula, do chalitza with her, and visharila tigra. And you'll be matter this whole story and she'll be allowed without any get. And this was over here after 30 days. Okay, so and they're both admitting that they didn't have relations with one another. So Amalei Rav Shravya says to Rava, but Vatanya, regarding this exact case, we just learned in the Braisa, tzricha get v'chalitza. Even if they're both admitting that they had no relations, but it's after 30 days, and therefore we assume that they did have relations with one another, so they're like a husband and wife. They are a husband and wife, and therefore you still need a get. Amalei, so Rava said, Tanya. Okay, if it says in the Braisa, befeder, so then it says so. So I retract the psak din that I said. Ba Yemene Hoin Berei the Rav Nachman. Hoin, the son of Rav Nachman, asked me Rav Nachman, so this is a name, Hoin. So he asked as follows, Sarasa Mahu. What's the story with the second wife? Over here in this case, after 30 days, the woman comes along and says, we never had relations yet. Or even within 30 days, she comes along and says, we never have relations yet. So therefore you still need chalitza. But the question is, what's with the second wife? Is she still also going to be asked to get married to anybody else? This wife here, this Yevama, was living with the Yavam for less than 30 days or 30 days. As far as she's concerned, the second wife, the Tzara is concerned, she thought that they already did Yibum. So therefore the second wife is mutter to get married to anybody. Now this Yevama that was living with the Yavam comes along and says, no, I never had relations with him. Is this going to answer the second wife as well, that she can't get married to anybody else? Amalei, so Rav Nachman answers, no, it's not going to ask the second wife. Because we are going to force this Yavam to give her chalitza if it's within 30 days that the Yevama claimed they never had relations, or mevakshin, or we ask him to give her chalitza if it's after 30 days. Teyaser tzara. This should also ask the tzara of getting married to anybody else. So the pshat of the Gemara's answer is, Rashi explains, and the Mishnah Rashi explained before, when a Yevama comes along and says, I never had relations with the Yavam, so really she's asering herself. This is the concept that's called in many places, Shavya nafsha chaticha d'isura. A person can come and say regarding anything, even if we don't trust him, but if you come and say, this piece of meat is aser, even if it's a situation where we don't trust you, but if you say it's aser, so for you it's going to be aser. She's coming and saying, I never had relations to him. Okay, so for her, she's not going to be mutter to get married to anybody else unless she gets chalitza. But we don't necessarily trust her to aser the other wife, the tzara as well. The other wife is going to be mutter to get married to anybody else. We saw that they lived with one another for less than 30 days, or even for even more, for 30 days. So the tzara is going to be mutter. For herself, she's going to be aser. But it's not going to aser the other one. Haneideres hana v'chulu. It said in the Mishnah, a woman that made a neder not to have a nod. So this is a Yevama. A Yevama made a neder not to have a nod from her Yavam. So what happens now? So the Mishnah said it depends. If she made the neder before her husband she was married to passed away, so it doesn't look like she intended to block the Yavam from doing his mitzvah of Yibum. She just made the neder before she got into a fight with him before. So then when her husband passes away and now she's up for Yibum, we're going to force the Yavam to give her chalitza. But if she made the neder after her husband passed away and she is the one that blocked the mitzvah of Yibum intentionally, so now it's her fault. We're not going to force the Yavam to give her a chalitza. We're going to ask him. We're going to ask him to be nice and give her a chalitza. That's the halach of the Mishnah. So the Gemara starts off here with a Mishnah in the Darim, and then based on this, it comes back afterwards to our Mishnah here. Sitna nasam, it says in the Mishnah in the Darim. But Ishaina hayoimrim, in the beginning they would say that the halach is as follows. Shalish nashim, there are the following three women that yotzis, they leave with a get, and v'noitlis ksuba, and they even get their ksuba money as well. One is a woman that comes to her husband and says, I'm tamid to live with you. Meaning, someone was mizana with me against my will, and I can't come back to live with you anymore. So that's one case. Another case is hashamayim. Heaven knows. So 1 second. Let me just go back a second to the case of tameya and ilach. So this is talking about a wife of a kohen, because a wife of a kohen, she, even if there was an einus, when she was mizana with someone and there was an einus, she can't go back to her husband. Okay, so that's the first case. The second case is hashamayim. Heaven knows beinilu beinecha that we are not living with one another. And she's saying basically to her husband, heaven knows that you're not living with me like husband and wife, and therefore I can't live with you anymore. Or netula ani mina Yehudim. I am removed from having benefit of all Jews. So meaning she made a neder asering marital relations between her and other Yidden. So now she can't live with her husband like a husband and wife. So in all these three cases, l'chatchila they said that the husband divorces her and she could collect her ksuba money. Then chazru loymar, they afterwards came and changed and said, no, shalitehe isha nisen, that she doesn't get a ksuba money. Shalitehe isha nisen, say now ba'achra, because they're afraid that this woman might have put her eyes on another husband that she wants to marry. And then she comes and says these things, and she's only saying it because she wants to leave her husband, so we don't trust her. And therefore, if she's going to get a get after saying these things, she's not going to get a ksuba money. Ella rather, hoimeres tmeyani loch. If she comes and says that someone was mizana with me, I'm Tommy, I can't go back to you. Tavi railet v'reh, she's going to have to prove this. Hashamayim beni libinecha. She says, heaven knows that I'm not living with you like husband and wife. Yaseh derech bakosha. So the bezin comes and says them, try to live again. We're not. Don't give her a get. Try to live with one another like husband and wife. The Tula Nimena Yehudim. She says, I made a neder and I can't have a no, and therefore I'm not living with my husband like a husband and wife. Yafer Chelkoi. So a husband has the ability to annul this vow, at least his portion of the vow. The fact that he's not allowed to have a no from her, he could annul that portion of the vow, even if she now will be able to even though the other portion of the vow, which is for others, he can't annul that, but for his chelik he could annul. And she could live with him. And she can't live with anybody else, but she could live with him. So therefore, we try to encourage them that they should still continue living with one another and that he should not divorce her. The question was asked, what happens if she was married to her husband, and she says, Netula ani mina Yehudim. And she comes and says that I am making a neder that I'm asa to have hana, to have married relations from any Yidden. Liyava mahu. When she made this neder, does this neder refer to the Yavam as well, to her husband's brother? In the case that he passes away, her husband will pass away, will this neder apply to the Yavam as well? And the Gemara explains what the sibaya here is. Mi maska daita, do we say that when she made this neder, she was actually taking into account that could be the Maya's bylaw, that her husband will die, v'nafla kami Yavam, and then she'll fall in front of the Yavam, and she does not want to live with this Yavam. So that's why she made this neder, that she shouldn't be able to live with this Yavam. And the point of here is, if she made this neder, she should not be able to live with the Yavam. So her husband, when she made this neder, she included her husband in this neder as well, that nobody could have annul from me to live with me. But her husband could annul that vow immediately. But her Yavam, though, will not be able to annul the vow. A Yavam can't annul the vows of her Yevama. So do I say that this neder took effect for the Yavam as well, and therefore now her Yavam can't annul this? Or maybe not. She never meant to make this neder to include her Yavam. And Rashi explains why not. Because when she made this neder, while her husband was alive, it was at that point forbidden for her to even Bechlal go live with her Yavam. She made this neder only trying to show her husband that I'm not going to go and live with anybody else that's permitted for me to go and live with them. But the brother, the Yavam, it's not even mutter for her to live with him. So there's no point of her including him in the neder if anyways he's asa. And she's not thinking, oh, maybe my husband will die and then he'll become mutter to me. She's not thinking about that. Maybe she's trying to encourage her husband to divorce her. And he shouldn't be concerned that she's going to go live with someone else. So she makes a neder, I'm not going to live with anyone else. But the Yavam, she never thought about that. He's anyways asa to her at this point. So Rav says, yeah, Yavam ain't a kabal. The neder she made now does not go on the Yavam. A Yavam is not like a husband. The neder would go on the husband, that the husband would be asa to live with her, and the husband could annul that vow. But regarding the Yavam, she never made this neder thinking about the Yavam. Shmuel Lama Yavam Arei Kabal. The Yavam is like a husband, just like when she makes the neder, so she's thinking about everybody, she's thinking about her husband, she's thinking about the Yavam as well, and therefore she becomes asa to the Yavam. Amar Abaye says, Kvasei de Rav Mistavra. Like what Rav said, it makes more sense based on what it said in the Mishnah. The Mishnah said as follows: Hanideres Hanom Yevamo, a woman, she makes a neder not to have anah from her Yavam. B'chaye Baila. She made this neder when her husband was still alive. So So now, if her husband passes away and now she's up for Yibum, and she can't do Yibum, there's a neder here, she's not going to have anah from him, so we force the Yavam to do Chalitza. Why? Because she didn't intentionally make this neder to block the mitzvah of Yibum. She made that neder still before, when her first husband was alive. But now the question is, if what Rav says is true, the maska daita, that even when she makes a neder when her first husband is alive, she's thinking about the fact that her husband might die and she might be up for Yibum, and therefore we say that when she makes this neder, she includes her Yavam as well. So if so, mevakshin mi bayale. Over here in this case, when she made this neder when her husband is still alive, why are we going to force the Yavam to give her chalitza? Shouldn't we say that she did it intentionally? It's very possible she did this intentionally in order to block her Yavam from the mitzvah of Yibum. So if so, why should we force the Yavam to do chalitza? We should only ask of him to do chalitza, but we can't force him. And says the Gemara, the Mishnah is a different case. Over here, what are we speaking about? Be'isha sheyesh lo banim. When there's a woman that's married to her husband and she has children with him. The kulahai lemaska daita. So to such an extent, she's not thinking that she's going to be up for Yibum. If she's married to her husband and she has children, what has to happen in order for her to be able to be up for Yibum? Her children have to die first, and then her husband dies, and now her husband died without any children, then she'll be up for Yibum. So if she has children now, so she's for sure when she's making this neder, she's not thinking that maybe her husband will die and her children will die first. So that's why in such a case, the neder she made is not going to refer to the Yavam. Aval ein lo banim, says the Gemara. So what does that mean? But if she made the neder when her husband was alive and she had no children, so what's going to be the din? Mevakshin. So over here, we're only going to request the Yavam to give her chalitza, but we can't force the Yavam to be chalitzer, because in such a case, she maybe was paying attention to the fact that her husband might die and she'll be up for Yibum. But if so, what does it say in the Mishnah? That im niskavna lekach. The Mishnah says afterwards in the Sefer that if she intentionally made the neder when her husband was alive, and that she should not have anar from the yavam, and she did it intentionally in order to block the yavam from the mitzvah of yibum, so then afilu b'chaye baila, even if she made this neder when her husband was alive, mevakshim mimenu sheyachleitz. We could only request of the yavam to do chalitza, we can't force him. Let the Mishnah make the distinction regarding the case that it said before. When do I say if she made a neder when her husband was alive? And we don't consider that to be a neder that she was trying to block the mitzvah of Yibum. If she had children, because then she didn't even think that she's going to come to the mitzvah of Yibum. But if she made this neder when her husband was alive and she had no children, so then it's very possible she was thinking about the Yavam. She was trying to block the mitzvah of Yibum. So then Mavakshin, we only could ask the Yavam to do Chalitza, we can't force him. So why doesn't the Mishnah make this distinction? Elo shmami, no. So therefore we go back to what we said before. What we could learn from our Mishnah is Loishna yesh labanim, v'loishna ein labanim. It makes no difference if she made the neder when her husband is alive, whether she has children, whether she doesn't have children. Kaifin oisai kirav. We're going to force the yavam once the brother passes away. We're going to force the yavam to do chalitza because we say that when she made her neder, she wasn't thinking of the yavam b'chal. She wasn't trying to block the mitzvah of yibum. So therefore, it's not her fault that now they can't do yibum. She wasn't intentionally doing this. So shemami no. This is a proof from our Mishnah to what Rav said before. Hadron Aloch Beis Shammai. This is the conclusion of Perek Beis Shammai, the 13th Perek of Masechta Yevamos. Okay, we continue with the next Perek, which will continue to discuss things that were brought up already in the previous Perek. The previous Perek, it started off with the halacha of a katana getting married, which is a marriage only midrabanan. Then it continued also talking about other kinds of marriages, which is only midrabanan, which is the marriage of a cheresh or a chareshes. So because there's no das, again, whenever the Chazal talk about a cheresh and chareshes, it means a deaf, mute. So there's no marriage minat Torah, there's only a marriage midrabanan. So here, this Mishnah is going to bring many different kinds of cases. This is actually all the Mishnayos of the entire Perek that the Gemara brings here all at once. And there are many different cases of marriages between a cheresh and a chareshes, with a pikeach and a pikachas, where there are marriages that are only midrabanan, and all kinds of different scenarios that comes out of halachas of this. Let's see. Zok Heilige Mishnah, cheresh shenosa pikachas, a cheresh. So he's marrying a woman that's a pikachas, she's healthy. Or a pikeach, the man is a pikeach, he's healthy. Shenosa chareshes, and he marries a chareshes, so she's the one that's a deaf mute. So either way, this marriage is not a marriage minat Torah, because one of them is a deaf mute. So now the halacha is just like the marriage which was midrabanan. Now, if he wants to divorce her, if he wants to divorce, he can divorce her as well. The marriage is midrabanan. The divorce is midrabanan. And if he wants to stay married to her, he can stay married to her as well. And the Mishnah explains, just like when he marries her, he's not marrying her in the normal way. He marries her with a he hints to her he can't talk, or she can't talk. So too, when he divorces her, he also divorces her by hinting to her. Again, like I said, the point is, if the marriage is midrabanan, so the divorce could also be midrabanan. Pikeach shenasa pikachas. A pikeach gets married to a pikachas. So this was two healthy man and woman, and they got married, a regular marriage minat Torah. And now, v'nischarsha, she became a chareshes. So now what happens? Imratza yaitzi, if he wants, he can divorce her. Vimratza yikaim, if he wants, he can stay married to her. The halacha by a get is that you don't need the das of a isha to accept a get. So even though she became a chareshes, he could divorce her. Nishtatis, but if she became a shaita, so then lo yaitzi. Now he can't divorce her. So as we'll see later in the Gemara, this is a takana b'derabana. We don't want her to be divorced, and then other people should take advantage of her. Now, nescharish hu ay nishtate. If the man is the one that became a cheresh or he became a shaita, then eina mitzia lamis. He can't divorce her forever because the man has to have das to give the get, so he can't. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri says about this. Why do we make this distinction? Why is it that if she became a chareshes, he could still divorce her? But if he became a cheresh, so now he can't divorce her. So the answer to Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, you can't compare. You can't compare a man that's divorcing his wife to the woman that gets divorced. The halacha by a woman is that she gets divorced whether she is consents, just willingly, even if she does not agree. The get is even against her will. But a man only gives a get if it's with his agreement. So therefore he has to have das for that. So the Gemara brings regarding this that Mishnah that is Rabbi Yochanan ben Gudgede. Rabbi Yochanan ben Gudgede testified the following: Ala chareishes she'si avia. There was a chareishes that her father married her off, and her father, when he married her off, this is a marriage min atayra. So he said that the halacha there was shehi yaitze beget, that they paskin that she can leave with a get, the husband can give her a get, even though she does not have any das, and the marriage was min atayra, but the husband is able to divorce her. Amrulai, so they said to Rabbi Yochanan ben Gudgede, avzu kayetzeba. So over here, the case that we were speaking about, a pikeach that married a pikachas, and then the woman became a chareshes, is the same thing. That even though the woman became a chareshes, that is, nevertheless, as long as the husband still has his mind with him, he's able to divorce her. Sagt the Mishnah weiter. Beis achen chareshen. Two brothers, they're both chareshen. Nesuin lebeis achayis chareshes. Now the Mishnah here is going to bring a bunch of different kinds of cases. This was quoted already before in the Gemara in the previous Perek. So you have a bunch of different cases here, and all of these are going to be cases where the marriage is only midrabanan. A few variations. So either you have two brothers that are married to two sisters, chareshes, and both of the sisters are also chareshes. Or they're married to two sisters that both of them are pikches. They're both healthy, but it's still a marriage midrabanan because both of the husbands are chareshes. Or they're married to two sisters, achas chareshes v'achas pikachas. One is a chareshes and one is a pikachas. Or you have two sisters that are chareshes, and they're married to two brothers, pikchen. And both brothers are healthy, are pikchen. So again, this is only a marriage with the Rabbanan because both of the wives are chareshes. Or they're married to two brothers, chareshin. Both husbands and both wives are all chareshin. Or they're married to two brothers, echad cheresh ve'echad pikeach. One is a cheresh and one is a pikeach. But the point is, in all of these cases, the marriage is midrabanan. So harei elu peturais min hachalitza min hayibum. So over here, if one dies, and now the other one, so the wife is up for yibum for the brother, you're going to be pater of chalitza and yibum, and the reason is because it's a chaysishtay. We're talking about two brothers that are married to two sisters. So the whole marriage is midrabanan, the whole obligation of yibum and chalitza is midrabanan, but it's a chaysishtay. So therefore, there's no yibum and chalitza. Now, if the case over here was regarding all of these cases, and their marriage is midrabanan, but they're not married to sisters, they're married to two wives that are not related to one another. So because this is only a marriage with the Rabbanon and they fell for Yibum, so what happens? The only thing you could do is you could do the Yibum, you can marry her, but you can't do Chalitza. Because you can't do Chalitza if either the husband or the wife is a Cheresh or Chareshes, you can't do Chalitza in such a case. So you could only do Yibum. V'imrot, right? That's, if you remember, we learned in the previous Perek, that's the halacha of a Cheresh and Chareshes. There's no Chalitza for if there's a Cheresh or Chareshes there. But then V'imrot Zulahaitzi Yaitziyu. If he wants to be mitzi any of them, so then he can be mitzi. So we're talking over here about the case where the husband himself is not a cheresh, so he's able to divorce them. Weiter, another case. Again, it's all cases of two brothers, but every time it's a little bit different, the case. Shnei yachim. So you have two brothers. Echad cheresh ve'echad pikeach. So over here, one brother is a cheresh and one brother is a pikeach. Nesuyin l'shtei achayis pikches. And they're married to two wives, and both of the wives are pikches. So basically what this means is one marriage is midrabanan and one marriage is minatayra. Now meis cheresh bala pikachas. The cheresh bala pikachas passed away, so this marriage is only midrabanan. So ma yase pikeach bala pikachas. What does the pikeach, the bala pikachas do? So his marriage is minatayra. So because they're married to two sisters, so teitzim mishum achaysisha. So his marriage is minatayra. So he's married to the Yevamos sister, a marriage minatayra. So the Yevama, there's no mitzvah of Yevamir b'chlal. She's the sister of the wife. If it's the reverse, meis pikeach bala pikachas, the one that was a proper marriage, pikeach bala pikachas. So this is the marriage minatayra. That's the one that passes away, and now the brother is married to a sister, but that marriage is only a marriage midrabanan. So ma yasa cheresh bal pikachas, the cheresh that's married to a sister, and this is only a marriage midrabanan. What does he do? Maitzi ishtay beget. He's going to have to be maitzi his wife with a get, because the yevama that now fell for yibum to him, that's a real marriage minatayra. So how could he remain married to his wife, which is only marriage mid'Rabbanan? The Yibum, which is the real Zikim and Atayra, will ask him to remain married to a sister, which is only marriage mid'Rabbanan. And and now the wife of the brother, which was up for Yibum, will be asa to him forever because he gave a get to her sister. So these two sisters are both going to become asa to him. Another case. These are all cases of brothers married sisters. So Shnei Achim Pikchin, two brothers, now they're both Pikchin, they're both healthy. And they're married to two sisters, Echad Chareshes Vechad Vachas Pikachas. And one of them is a Chareshes and one of them is a Pikachas. So basically it comes out the same thing. One marriage is Minatayre and one marriage is Midrabanan. So Meis Pikeach Bal Chareshes, the Pikeach, that's the husband of the Chareshes, passes away. So that marriage was only a marriage Midrabanan. Ma Yase Pikeach Bal Pikachas. So now the brother that this wife now fell for Yibum to him, so it's his wife's sister, and he's fully married regular Minatayre. So what does he do? Teitzim Shemachais Isha. So this woman that fell for Yibum for him, he doesn't have to do any Yibum, it's his wife's sister. Okay, but if it's the reverse, the same halacha like we said before. Meis Pikeach Bal Pikachas. So then, Ma Yasa Pikeach Bal Achareshes. What does the Pikeach Bal Achareshes do now? So over here, Maitzi Esishte beget. He's going to have to divorce his wife with a get because the wife that fell for Yibum, she's the one that's the real marriage Menatayre. The wife that he's married to now, that's only a marriage Midrabanan. So that he can't continue being married to her. She's a sister to the one that's the real marriage Menatayre. But now the wife of his brother, he could do chalitza. Before we said he has to marry her, but over here he could do chalitza because he's a pikeach, and the Yevamos that fell for Yibum to him is also a pikachas, so he can do chalitza. A third case again,
Why doesn't he divorce his wife? To make chalitza, that's it.
No. He's going to have to divorce her because she's a sister. She's a sister.
He's not getting married to the other one. You just make it
chalitza. No. Okay, so you have to look back at the case again. If you make the cheshbon, she's a sister. He's married, so because it's a sister, so he's going to have to divorce his wife. The woman that fell to Yibum to him is a sister, right. And she's the one that's married Menatayre. That's right. The real marriage. And he's married to his wife now, only a marriage Midrabanan. Right. So because the one that fell to Yibum is a marriage Menatayre, so therefore she's going to push away his wife that he's married to now, only Midrabanan. That's the halacha. If the one that fell to Yibum is the marriage Menatayre, doesn't allow you to continue staying married to the one that you married to Midrabanan. If the one that you're married to presently is a marriage Menatayre, and the one that fell for Yibum was only a marriage Midrabanan, so then it works the other way around. Then you say, the one that I'm married to now is Menatayre, that's the real marriage. So therefore the one that fell for Yibum, which is only a marriage Midrabanan, gets pushed off. I'm married now, I'm Menatayre, and she's a sister to her, to my wife. So that's the one that gets pushed off. But if it's the other way around, if the one that you're married to now is only Midrabanan, and the one that fell to Yibum is a marriage Menatayre, that's stronger. The one that's married to Menatayre is the real marriage, and that's the real Zikah. So that pushes off the one that you're married to now, that you have to divorce her.
Yeah, but still, I don't know what he was asking, but the case is that the marriage was Midrabanan, what do you need a get for?
You still need a get. You're going to need a get Midrabanan. Midrabanan, you're going to need a get. Do you need a get over here? I believe, or maybe without a get. Maybe you're right. Beget. No, but you do need a get, yeah.
Yeah, but at the beginning he said that you don't need a get.
I'm not sure. I don't remember the lashon of the Mishnah before. Okay, I'll have to look back.
At the beginning.
Okay, could be. Well, Beremiza, by the way, did mean with a get. If that's your question, Beremiza over there did mean with a get. It means you can't give a regular get Menatayre, but you still do need a get, though. Beremiza did not mean without a get. Okay, let's see weiter. Here we have one more case.
This means beget.
Yeah, exactly. It's not a get Menatayre. It's a get Midrabanan.
Okay.
Okay, there's one more case over here of two brothers that are married to two sisters. Shnei achin, echad cheresh ve'echad pikeach. You have two brothers, one is a cheresh and one is a pikeach. Nusuyin l'shtei achayos, and they're married to two sisters, and echad chereshes ve'echad pikachas. So basically, the cheresh is married to a chereshes, and the pikeach is married to a pikachas. So again, we have one case which is a marriage midrabanan, And the other case, which is two healthy man and woman that are married to each other, that's a marriage minat Torah. So now meis cheresh bal chereshes, the cheresh bal chereshes, which is the marriage midrabanan. So he passed away. Ma yas bikech bal pikachas. So the bikech bal pikachas, that's married to a sister, and this is the real marriage minat Torah. So the woman that fell for Yibum, she was only married with the Rabbanon, and you're already married to her sister in Torah. So therefore, that Yevama has no mitzvah of Yibum b'chlal. She leaves because of Achais Isha. But in the reverse, Meis Pikeach Baal Pikachas, the one that was the real marriage min Torah, that's the one that the husband passed away. So now Ma Yasa Cheresh Baal Chareshes, the Cheresh Baal Chareshes, which the marriage is only with the Rabbanon, what does he do? So again, he's going to have to divorce his wife with a get because he can't continue staying married there, because now you have this sister that's up for Zika for the Yibumir, so therefore he has to divorce her. And the wife of the brother will be also forever, and he can't do any chalitza for her either. He's not going to be able to marry her because it's his wife's sister, and he divorced her. And even after you divorce your wife's sister, it's still aser, and he can't do Yibum either because she's a chareshes. Shnei Yachin. Now the Mishnah continues also a gvaiter with cases of two brothers, but all the next cases of the Mishnah, another three cases here in the Mishnah, is not two brothers married to two sisters, but two brothers that marry two wives that are not sisters. Shnei Yachin echad cheresh vechad pikeach. Two brothers, one is a cheresh and one is a pikeach. Nesuin l'shtei nochrios, and they're married to two wives that are not related. Pikches, and both of these wives are pikches. They're both healthy. But again, it comes out that one marriage here is minat Torah, because one is a pikeach married to a pikachas, and one is a cheresh married to a pikachas. So meis cheresh bal pikachas, the cheresh bal pikachas passes away, so this whole marriage is just a marriage midrabanan. Ma yas the pikeach bal pikachas, so the pikeach that's married to the pikachas, which is a marriage minat Torah. So now what does he do? So no problem. Let's say miyavim. You can do either chalitza or yibum. This is a regular case of a yibum or chalitza. Meis pikeach bal pikachas. If the Pikeach Baal Pikachas passes away, and now this woman, this Pikachas, is up for Yibum, for who? For this Cheresh. So Ma Yasa Cheresh Baal Pikachas, kindness. He could only be Miyavim her, but and then Ve'enim Moitzi Loilam. He's not going to be able to divorce her forever. So he can't do Chalitza because he's a Cheresh. So he can't do Chalitza. He must do the mitzvah of Yibum. And then after he does the mitzvah of Yibum, he's not going to be able to divorce her. Going back to the rule that it said in the beginning of the Mishnah, if your marriage to this woman was midrabanan, you can give her also a get midrabanan. But in this case, the whole zika of yibum to this yavam was minat Torah, because she was married to her first husband minat Torah. She was married pikeach to pikachas. So this was a regular marriage minat Torah. So the mitzvah of yibum is minat Torah. So if the marriage was minat Torah and now he's a cheresh, how could he give her a get? Once the marriage was minat Torah, he can't give her a get, which would be only work midrabanan. So therefore, he can't divorce her forever. Another case of two brothers that are married to two wives that are not related. Shnei Achim Pikchen Nesuin Lebeis Nachri is two brothers that are Pikchen that are married to two wives that are not related. Echa Achas Pikachas Va'achas Chareshes. So over here also it's the same idea where you have one marriage is Minat Torah and one marriage is Midrabanan. So now Meis Pikeach Baal Chareshes, the Pikeach, the Baal of the Chareshes passes away. So now, Ma Yasa Pikeach Baal Pikachas. What does the Pikeach Baal Pikachas do? Kindness. He could only marry her. He can't give her a chalitza. She's a chareshes. But if he wants, he could divorce her because he's healthy. The husband can give her a divorce. As we said before in the Mishnah, we don't need the das of the Isha for the get. We need his das, and he could divorce her. Meis Pikeach Baal Pikachas. The Pikeach Baal Pikachas passes away. Ma Yasa Pikeach Baal Chareshes. The Pikeach Baal Chareshes, what does he do? So So the Yevama that just fell for Yibum is a pikachas. She's a healthy woman. So he can either do chalitza for her or it could be meyavim her. The final case of the Mishnah, Shnei Achen Echad Cheresh ve'Echad Pikeach. You have two brothers, one is a Cheresh and one is a Pikeach. Nisuin lebeis Nachrius, and they're married to two unrelated wives, Echad Chereshes ve'Echad Pikachas. So again, the point over here is that the Cheresh is married to the Chereshes and the Pikeach is married to the Pikachas. So you have one marriage which is midrabanan and another marriage which is minat Torah. Meis cheresh bal chareshes. So the cheresh, the bal chareshes passes away. So ma yaseh pikeach bal pikachas. So the brother, which is in a regular marriage, what does he do? Kindness. He has to marry her. She's a chareshes. He can't give her chalitza. Ve'im ratza lo haitzi yaitzi. And because he's healthy, if he wants, he can give her a get. Meis pikeach bal pikachas. The pikeach bal pikachas passes away. So ma yasa cheresh bal chareshes. Kindness, he's going to have to marry her. He could do yibum of the might see loylam. He's not going to be able to divorce her forever because he's a cheresh. He must marry her, right? So, and he's not going to be can't do chalitza because he's a cheresh. So he must marry her, but he can't divorce her forever because the zika, the yibum was minat Torah, and he can't do a get mit rabbanon for a zika and a yibum, which was minat Torah. Okay, so that's all the cases of the Mishnah. How many cases do we have in the Mishnah? I think it was maybe 9 cases. Many cases here. Okay. Let's see one piece of the Gemara here. Zak the Gemara, Rami Bar Chama said. So Rami Bar Chama is going to come address a very general thing regarding this Mishnah. We see over here in this Mishnah that Chachamim will mesakin a marriage with the Rabbanon for a cheresh and a chereshes. So namaishna cheresh v'chereshes. Why is it that when it comes to a cheresh and a chereshes, the tekinu lu Rabbanon nisuin, Chachamim will mesakin for them that they should be able to get married. Umaishna the shaita, and why is it for the case of a shaita that the Chachamim were not mesakin to them for them that they should be able to get married? And the Gemara says, "V'shaita the light titkinu rabbanon nisuin." And where do we see that for a shaita there's no marriage, even with the rabbanon? The Tanya, because it says in the Braisa, "Shaita v'katan shenasu nashim," a shaita or a katan that got married, and then umeisen shisayim, and their wives pass away. P'turais mina chalitze umina yivum. There's no chalitze, there's no yibum, because the marriage wasn't a marriage b'chlal, not minat Torah and not minat rabbanon, garnished. Cheresh v'chereshes. Oh, sorry, this is part of the answer already. Okay, so but cheresh and chereshes, that's what we learned in our Mishnah. Cheresh and chereshes, it said that the marriage is midrabanan. So why for a cheresh and chereshes is there a marriage? So the Gemara explains. Cheresh v'chereshes, when it comes to a cheresh and a chereshes, the kaime takante de rabbanon, tekinu lu rabbanon. So we know that if chachamim are going to make a takana, that the cheresh and the chereshes could get married to one another, the chachamim's takana is going to hold. Cheresh and chereshes to get married to one another, so they have a way of communicating. I mean, you have, like the Mishnah said, b'remize, so they can communicate, they can live with one another. So Chachamim made the takana that they should get married. But shaita, v'shaita, the loy kaimet akanta de rabbanon. If you have a shaita that gets married to a shaita, so then even the Chachamim are going to institute that the marriage should take effect. It's not going to hold. Because a shaita that gets married, you can't live with a shaita. The ein adam dad nachash bekfife. Just like a person, a human being, can't live with a snake together in the same house. You can't live b'chlal. So bekfife achas, that is like the kin rabbanon nisuin. Chachamim did not make a takana of marriage for a shaita. But the Gemara now asks, there's another thing that it said before in the Braisa. Chachamim did not make a takana of nisuin for a cotton. Why is it that for a cotton, Chachamim did not make any takana that there should be marriage for a cotton, and but for a cheresh, Chachamim did institute that with the rabbanon a cheresh could get married. So the Gemara answers, Nesuin cheresh dal yasil klal nesuin. A cheresh is a deaf mute. He's not going to be healed. He'll never be able to get married. So Chachamim gave him a chance to be able to get married. But so therefore, Chachamim mesakim takin rabbanon nisuin. Katan the asil klal nisuin. A katan, he'll get older and he'll be able to get married. So let him wait. Lo takin rabbanon nisuin. Chachamim were not mesakim for him to be able to get married. Frek the Gemara, if so, v'harei ketana. If so, when it comes to a ketana, the asya leklal nisuin, she will become older and will be able to get married minat Torah. So what's the rush? Why v'takin rabbanon nisuin? And Chachamim were mesakim that even if her father passes away, that a brother or a mother can marry her off. Why? Answers the Gemara, Hasam over there, the reason is something else. If there's a girl, even a ketana, and people know that no one can marry her off, usually a father can marry her off. We're here, the father's not alive and he can't marry her off, we don't want people should treat her as hefker. Now, one more question which ends this inyan. Why is it that the whole halacha of miyun, that this girl could refuse her marriage, only applies to a ketana? Ketana could at any time refuse the marriage. And why is it that by a chareshes, Chachamim instituted that she could get married, but a chareshes cannot refuse the marriage? Once she's married, she's married. Says the Gemara, because the imkem mimni v'le'nosfila. Because if you're going to allow a chareshes to refuse the marriage, people are not going to want to marry her. So Rashi explains, when it comes to a ketana, so a husband knows, even though the ketana could refuse the marriage, but she could only refuse the marriage when she's a ketana. So the husband will appease her for a few years until she becomes a Gedaila, and then he'll remain married to her. So even if we allow the Katana to refuse the marriage, the husband will be ready to marry her. A Chareishes, she's a Chareishes her entire life. So at any given day, for the future of her entire life, she could always refuse the marriage. If so, no husband will want to marry her. So therefore, in order for this marriage to hold, Chacham will misaken that she gets married. And if she's going to want to get married, she better think about this twice, because she's not going to be able to refuse the marriage afterwards.